So while I trek over to the Shire, okay, I don't have a tune here, but I can get through the Bjorning section pretty quickly. Let's introduce who you are, how long you've been playing LOTRO, what keeps you playing LOTRO, and kind of just help me fill in the gaps in terms of your involvement with the MMO.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a gamer from the Netherlands, I suppose. I go by Burning Embers on YouTube, and I've been playing LOTRO for about 13 years, I believe.
Oh wow, cool.
I'm
cool
26 now, so basically half my life, which
That's
is very
so cool.
weird to say. Yeah, it's I never expected it to last that long, which sounds bad, but it's new territory, I think, for a lot of MMOs to be this old. So and I started playing it before I had read any of the Lord of the Rings books, because I was a little bit my English wasn't good enough and we didn't have the Dutch books at home. And then I started reading them. And as I read them, I noticed the differences between the movies and the books, started looking into where any of those differences present in the games. And I noticed that you can basically track the path 1-to-1, and every detail that's written in the text can be found in the game.
Really?
So,
interesting.
Yeah, so that really hooked my my monkey brain. Oh, this is really cool.
Yeah.
The people that built this map actually read all of this and thought of putting it in there. And I've never seen another game do that.
Fascinating.
So it's not really that. I can stand the classic MMO combat. I don't mind it, but I think the main thing that I'm really here for is the story and the way the world is built. And yeah, I think in 13 years they've improved in a lot of things, especially on world building and map building. So there's still new stuff that's fun to discover.
Is that from a quality and complexity perspective, or is it also related to the accuracy with which Tolkien's world is represented graphically?
Yeah, so I think accuracy is gets more difficult for them as time goes on, because they're kind of
interesting.
By now the ring has been destroyed. We are with most places in the Fourth Age.
Okay.
And there's stuff known about the Fourth Age, but a lot of it is also not known or not as intensely described as in the Lord of the Rings. So I think they really try their best to make use with what they've got, and they really do manage to make interesting stories, I think. Graphically, they just I think basically everything after Mordor just, in my opinion, looks like a whole level of better than what they used to produce. So yeah.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned your YouTube channel. Give a brief summary of what you cover, how long you've been engaged on the platform, what sets you apart. Kind of give a little advertisement for your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so I started it 2 years ago.
Oh, cool!
And
awesome.
It's really, so it hasn't been that long, and it's basically really related to what we're talking about today. I noticed all these details, and I thought, this is really cool. This should excite not just MMO fans, but Lord of the Rings fans in general.
Sure.
And I think it's the best representation of Middle-earth. I think in the sense of accuracy, it's even better than the Peter Jackson films in this case. So
that's a cool comparison.
Yeah, because they were very good, those movies, but they had to make cuts to make it a movie. And this game, it has the space to be super, super huge, so they can put everything in that's in the books. And I felt that there were some videos that were tracking the path and showing all these details, but a lot of them didn't completely finish it, or were more Lord of the Rings people that were a little bit. They were also players of the MMO, but not as long as I was, maybe.
Okay.
So I felt I really wanted to make videos where I show all this attention to detail that's being put into the game, for people that like Lord of the Rings but don't want to play a very long MMO.
Gotcha.
And also because we don't know how long it's going to last. It's going to be 16 years in 2 months.
Crazy.
But maybe... Yeah, it's crazy, but at some point it's gonna have to end, right? So
sure,
when
it's
it
a
ends,
sad thought, but it's a realistic one.
Yeah, it's realistic, and I think as long as YouTube lasts longer than the game does, there will be an archive on YouTube of what this game is for
Oh,
people who may have come
that's
too
beautiful.
late. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's really, really
yeah,
interesting.
it's very important to me, and I
Sure,
figured if
yeah.
it's important enough to me as a Middle Earth fan, I hope it's also important to other Middle Earth fans.
Yeah, absolutely. So is your coverage on YouTube, I need to spend some more time engaging in your content. Do you take a temporal approach, or is it more thematic, or do you blend a little bit of each?
So excellent question. This is actually a problem that I have run into.
Okay,
I didn't
interesting.
really know how to start because I've
Sure.
never made YouTube videos before.
Yeah.
So the first idea that I had was just do a top 10 list. That's easy, gives
Okay,
you a bit
sure.
of a framework.
Yep.
So the first one was on the Shire because it was the easiest. It's where the Lord of the Rings begins. So I
Hmm.
do that one. And at first I was following the maps in the order of that you play them in games. So first the Shire, then
Hmm.
Breland,
Hmm.
because everyone goes
Hmm.
to Breland, then the Lowlands. And then kind of when I made that third video, I figured like half of them are related to stuff that's on the path of the Fellowship, and half of the details are related to general stuff in the maps. So at some point, I decided like I really want to follow the path of the Fellowship because that's really the most interesting part.
Gotcha.
So that's
Hmm.
kind of the
Hmm.
framework that I'm following now. But I'm now kind of coming into Gondor and the Battle of the Pelennor Field, so it's actually
Hmm.
really close
Hmm.
to the end. And yeah, the videos have kind of evolved over time from top
Sure.
10 to, so I've dropped the top 10 thing and just try to make them a bit more cinematic
Cool.
with the
Hmm.
limited
Hmm.
tools that we have in the game to
Sure.
make
Yeah, yeah.
cinematic
Hmm.
videos. It's very, very
Hmm.
difficult, but also interesting. Yeah, so it's kind of been growing over time, which is also fun for me to figure out new and better ways to show this world and the stories within it.
Yeah, absolutely. Question in terms of, you mentioned the kind of the difficulty of finding a more cinematic view or a cinematic representation of material. Are there any, like, I know there's instances, there are the epic battles, skirmishes. Have you found there being one specific type of gameplay, I don't know if feature is the right word, but
Yeah.
like there's landscape that's not instance versus, there's raids, there's delvings. Is there one particular type of gameplay mode that tends to yield the best either cinematic or lore details, or does it just entirely depend on the lore bit you are focusing on?
Yeah, I think the more you get closer to the resolution of the story, so the more you
Hmm.
go towards Gondor, basically,
Okay. Hmm.
most of it is located inside the story quests, so the story instances.
Okay, like the
Uh,
epic book quests. Is that what
yeah,
just to make sure I'm
yeah,
understanding? Interesting.
yeah,
Huh.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because as the story progresses, you kind of start following kind of starting from Rohan, you're really following
Hmm.
the storyline of the Fellowship. Basically, you join the Battle of Helm's Deep,
Huh.
you go
Yep.
through the
Yep.
Paths of the Dead, and you join in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields and the Battle of the Black Gate. So as the story continues, you kind of become another part of the Fellowship and do a lot of stuff there. But in the beginning, especially in everything around Eriador, which is part of the Shadows of Angmar, the first volume or first story arc
Hmm.
of the Lord of the Rings Online, that's really based around an entirely different conflict with an entirely different and unknown original villain.
Huh.
So that, and there is like a lot of, there you really see the creativity of the developers when it comes to creating original villains and stories, in my opinion.
Interesting. So, is there a correlation between the farther away you are from the epic book quests, the more liberties that exist, or is that evolved over time?
um it kind of depends. I think it depends mainly on how much the developers have to go on, from what I've noticed. So
Okay.
some places have quite some history behind them, and a lot of it has been described by Tolkien about those places. Like Eregion, for instance, is a good one. It has a lot of history
Hmm.
in the Second
Hmm.
Age. The Fellowship travels through it in the Third Age. But if you look at something like the North Downs, which is
Yep.
personally
Mhm.
one of my least favorite areas in the game because of it.
Oh,
Like, yeah, it's
interesting.
it's
Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh.
except for the Fortress of Fornost, which is over there. There hasn't been much that, yeah, and like it's the main base of the Rangers, but beyond that, there hasn't been much described about it.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I feel it's correlated to. Like if there's a lot of stuff to put in there, the developers will put it in.
Mhm.
Yeah, but sometimes there isn't, and then they have to come up with their own stories. And I'm not saying those stories are bad, but they will not be filled with all the different types of details that you would expect sometimes.
Interesting. Is there, and we're speaking broadly until I can meet up with your character. I'm almost out of the tutorial. Is there a distinct either quality or texture difference, using the term metaphorically, between when you've encountered a story that is primarily engineered by the development team versus there being a lot of details from Tolkien? Like, can you, from your perspective, being at least compared to me, I'm not a lore expert at all. I would consider you far more ahead of that in that area. Can you immediately notice, or do they try to still keep, I don't know if signature is the right word, but at least the
Mhm.
Tolkien flavor, or is it still pretty distinct where you either it's the types of flowers or even just the word usage in the storytelling? Like, is it pretty obvious from your
Yeah.
perspective when you encounter that?
I think they really do try to keep the flavor intact, and I think they do a
Yep.
very good job of it. I know the
Hmm.
person that they have a lore expert in house,
Okay. Hmm.
who is an actual scholar, I believe, on the subject. So I've read the
That's so
books
cool.
very much, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I dive into the material very heavily, but I don't
Hmm.
have a PhD on it, like some people do.
Sure.
So they do have all the knowledge. Like they have a very knowledgeable person that figures all this stuff out. So they really try to keep it intact. And I think what's also difficult about the distinction, and here we come once again to the age of the game.
Sure.
Um, I think over time they have developed more tools, more ways to present stories in a different manner. So the one that really
Okay.
stuck out to me was the Gundabad expansion,
Yes.
which is about the mountain where the first dwarves originally awoke in Middle Earth, a very important and interesting place. And a group of dwarves is going to try to reclaim it. And because we're in the fourth age, it may actually be successful. And suddenly there was a huge increase in like voice acting, in scenes that had more of a choreographed camera.
Really? Okay. I'll have to
So
check that out
yeah,
then.
so a lot more dynamic, I
Yeah.
would say,
Sure.
than something like the Shadows of Angmar, where they didn't use those techniques very
Yep.
much. So even though yeah, the fourth age stuff is more created, like or is more original material, I think it's presented often a lot better. And I think especially they've gotten better at doing like tugging at the heartstrings a little
Hmm.
bit,
Hmm.
like really creating, like I think sometimes with the Lord of the Rings, because it's such a grand story, you
Hmm.
kind of lose the personal emotional connection to it a little bit.
Sure.
I
Sure.
think that's what the hobbits are there for also, I think, like to
Hmm.
really
Hmm.
make you experience it through the lens of a normal person.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think they've gotten very good at at doing that in the later volumes.
Interesting. Do you think part of that is related to the creation of novel stories that we don't yet know the ending to, versus if someone's read the books, in a sense, you have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen? Do you think there's any of that element there that you're still trying to, from a reception perspective, you don't really know where it's going to go because it's brand new and it's influenced and inspired from Tolkien, but it may not
Yeah,
be, what word am I looking for? Like, originated from Tolkien specifically.
yeah. It might be because I think with stuff that's really based on what happens in the books,
Hmm.
obviously you know where it's going to go. The only
Sure.
thing that can surprise you is, well, anything along the way. Whereas with the Gundabad expansion, for instance, or another thing is the ending to the Black Book of Mordor volume.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know if you don't want me to spoil it or whatever, because then I won't. But I
You're
can
free. Yeah,
explain a little
go
bit
ahead.
about
You're
what I
fine.
mean.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
for it.
so basically at the end of the villain of the first volume, Shadows of Angmar, is called
Mhm.
Mordorith. At the end
Okay.
of the volume, it's revealed his true name is Earnur, which is a canon
Mhm.
character. It's the
Mhm.
last king of Gondor. He was challenged by the Witch King to a duel at Minas Morgul.
Mhm.
Foolishly, he went and he was never seen again. That's in the books, so that's
Mhm.
canon. And
Gotcha.
they use this character that they say the Witch King turned him into a wraith and he became a servant of Mordor, which is a great, to my mind, great move. It's like a very big brain move because it's a super cool character to use in that way. But anyway, you kill him at the end of Shadows of Angmar, as far as you know. And then he returns during the Battle of the Pelennor Fields as the commander Gothmog, who is also a canon character, but it's kept really vague in the books what Gothmog is. You don't really know. He's mentioned a couple
Okay.
times.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
assumed he dies, but there's never really any elaboration on it.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that's, I
Okay.
think, also a really clever way to fill in a canon character that is a little bit vague. But at the end of the Black Book of Mordor, which takes place after the destruction of the One Ring, you actually see in the epilogue a story of how Earnur was turned into this wraith. And it turns out there was a friend of his. It was a dwarf. He knew his friend got captured in Minas Morgul. So this dwarf went into Mordor by himself, labored there for 10 years until he could find his friend. And
Mhm.
and then he found him, consoled him for a long time, and eventually Earnur was lost, and this dwarf left Mordor again. And he wrote down this entire story in a book, and that's called the Black Book of Mordor. So
Oh,
what's
that's so
really
cool.
it's super
That's
it's super
awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
And what's even more wild is you get this super emotional story about a friendship surrounding this villain that you fought for like more than 10 years. Like
Totally. Yes.
you
Uh-huh.
kill Mordorith like 10 years ago in my case.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
now
yeah, yeah.
suddenly you're like sympathizing with him. That's so,
Sure. Sure.
yeah, that's bizarre. So back then I was like, holy shit, this game, they still know how to get you. I was super impressed at that moment.
Yeah, the payoff of developing a long-term story, that is so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I'm here in I'm trying to get over to the specific spot you highlighted. I'm out of money, but I have items, so I'm trying to get enough to pay my
I can send
Swift
you
travel.
I can send you some money because we might be Swift traveling a little bit more.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry to rob your
What's your
pockets.
character name? Then I can invite you
Marl
into.
MMO. It is not Tolkien friendly. This is purely for being pragmatic.
Yeah.
MARLE
Yeah.
MMO.
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, I'm just one Swift travel away from. There we go. I appreciate that.
Yes. There we go.
Okay.
That's gonna make things a bit easier.
No, I appreciate that. No, sorry, I'm a little behind here. I've been trying to juggle some things, so I appreciate your patience. And your
Yeah, that's
English,
okay.
by the way, is superb. It is excellent.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I think my pronunciation is something I'm occasionally a little bit insecure about, but my vocabulary I've practiced a lot. So
Even as a native speaker, there are so many different accents and ways of. I mean, even the amount of vocabulary. Oftentimes, I'll come across a word in reading, but I haven't heard it spoken, so I'll pronounce it the way I think it probably is, and still not totally be sure. So,
yeah.
no, it's good. No, I deeply admire and respect cultures that are multilingual. I can read Greek and Latin, but I
Oh,
can't really speak them
dang.
well. But I studied that in college. But anyways, so but no, I part of me wishes I was born a European. So because I so value languages, it's just so cool to me. Okay, I received it. Oh
I
my
thank
gosh, thank you
video
so
games
much.
for this gift for me.
You know what? I've actually been turning my UIs into like French and stuff just to get some practice with different languages. So yeah, no, totally,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Okay, sweet. I received the gift. Thank you so much. And so,
Yeah.
did you say back end or did you say Hobbiton?
Hobbiton is the stable master that you can take. And
Okay,
that's where backend
beautiful.
is.
Okay, awesome. Why can't I do? You haven't
You
discovered.
probably haven't unlocked it yet. So you
Let's
may have
see.
to walk here.
No worries. Let me see if I have points. Okay, I have points. I think I can just get some these mithril coins. What's the one that I can afford? Let's do this one. I think I can just do it that way. Oh, sweet. So that was easy peasy. So then, oh, sweet. I can sweat. Oh, and that's just one mithril coin. Perfect. All right. I'm a couple seconds from you.
Yeah. Do you have a horse?
I am currently on the free whistle horse that I have for 24 hours. Yes, so I do have that. I forget it. There's some quest early on that you can get the riding skill. I didn't want to take too much longer. I wish I had time. Oh, there you are. Excellent. Okay, perfect. So I will hop. Right. So let's see. So at this point, I am essentially your cameraman in a way. So if we want to start here, I'm basically going to follow you and let you share the interesting things you have to produce. So the skin, by the way, of your horse, of those double hammers or double axes.
Axes, yeah.
That is so cool. I love that.
Yeah, it's cool, huh? Yeah. It's
super cool.
From
Awesome.
the Minas Morgul expansion, I believe. We'll go this way.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Yep, I'm just going to follow you. So, set the stage here. Where are we going? What's the interesting tidbit here? Yeah, let's get this started.
So, I took the liberty of creating a bit of a route. We'll see how far we get.
Sure.
And, of course, knowing that you were starting on a new toon, we were a little bit restricted in terms of geography. But luckily, every map is so detailed that that's not really a problem. So, I figured we'd start in the Shire because it's nice and recognizable.
Yes.
And kind of set the stage a little bit. So, we'll go up to Bag End,
awesome.
Formerly Frodo's house, as we'll find out. It's no longer actually his. So I figured we'd start here, so I can also talk a little bit about when the Lord of the Rings Online takes place. And how that's actually pretty cleverly done. So you'd expect to find Frodo here, basically, but you don't. It's Lobelia and Lotho Sackville Baggins, and that's because in the beginning of the books, Frodo sells Bag End to his cousins. Because he has to leave the Shire, he needs an alibi, basically, so he sells his house and he moves to Buckland. And the game basically takes place or starts the moment that he leaves the Shire. So the introduction of the hobbits, if you play a hobbit, the first thing you meet is Frodo and Sam on the road hiding for a Black Rider. So that's basically the time that we are at the moment.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay, awesome. So that explains why if someone were to come here and expect to see Frodo, why you instead see other family members.
These people. Yeah,
that is so cool. Awesome. It's a beautiful area.
So we'll continue. It really is. Yeah, we'll continue up north.
Okay.
And go a little bit further into the unbeaten path. So it's possible that my mount is a little bit quicker than yours. So
no worries.
I'll try to.
I'll just let you know if you get too far ahead. Yeah, not a problem.
So I think the next bit that we're going to go to, I felt I wanted to highlight because it's not really related to like the epic quest of Frodo and Sam, but it is a really nice book-related detail. It's really kind of an example of how they are able to put a lot of very neat things into all these maps. So it's quite close by, just a little bit further through the woods. Wait on you just a second. There we go.
I also enjoy that over time they've improved the graphical fidelity of these early zones. There's still this nice, charming design to it.
Yeah. I didn't actually know that for a long time. And then I went back to these places and I thought, this looks a lot better than I used to, I think. I'm pretty sure it didn't look like this when I started out.
But yeah,
it's great that they do. And I think especially the revamped places, they look like good enough to me in these days, even in such an old game. So I'm really glad that they're able to make the most of the limitations that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
So here we are. We are now in a town called Brocken Borings. All the towns in the Shire are also mentioned on the map of the Shire that's present in the Fellowship of the Ring. But that's not the interesting bit. The interesting bit is this statue. So if you remember, in the Hobbit movies, it's mentioned. It's a detail from the Hobbit books, actually. It's an anecdote about a battle that takes place a long time ago in the Shire at a place called the Greenfields, which is the fields up north from here.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest hobbits to ever live knocks off the head of a goblin leader, and it flies into a rabbit hole, and thus he invents the sport of golf because this it's really silly, but this goblin is
I
called
love that.
Goin Bull, and so you go from Goin Bull to golf.
Oh, that
so
is
they've erected,
beautiful.
yeah, it's super silly, but they've erected a statue to him here.
That's so cool. Look at that.
That's yeah, and that's not the only thing. We're going to continue a little bit further.
Okay.
So we're going to go a little further down the road. And here, I don't hope you're too afraid of spiders, because there might be some.
Oh, no, I'm fine. I'm all good.
And I think they're all level 6, but I'll just deal with them real quick. Because, yeah, I'm 121, so that's going to be quick enough. But we're going to go into a little cave here.
Okay.
Just to show how far they're willing to take these kind of details and also incorporate them into actual quests. Right. So from here we'll walk because we have to kill some stuff. Or there we go.
I'm noticing that I'm gaining experience despite our level discrepancy. Is there effectively power leveling in LOTRO?
I think there's a limit to it, but I am not exactly sure because I haven't really tried actually.
Gotcha. I just noticed it. I figured due to the difference that I wouldn't have received any experience, but
yeah.
Anyways, I just,
I think it's because the mobs are your level, probably.
Oh, gotcha. Right. Okay. I love the details inside the delvings, the caves. They really do a good job with that.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's see. It's not very big, so we'll be through here
no worries.
soon.
Oh, there's the queen.
Yeah, one of several, I believe.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
They're really hard for me to spot because their names are all gray. So
kind of camouflage
into the webbing. Yeah. All right. There we go. Almost there. So yeah, as I just mentioned, this Mr. Bandobrastuk was able to smash this goblin head into a rabbit hole.
Yes.
And look what you find on this rock.
No way.
Yeah,
no
so that's the
way.
actual skull of that goblin. There's a quest that has you collect this from this hole over here. So that's such a fun little quest to make out of that detail. And yeah, to me, it also really tickles like that lore satisfaction to find the real object of the fictional historical event. So
oh my god, that's so rewarding. Oh my gosh, especially if you weren't expecting to see that specific detail manifest here and suddenly you come upon it. Oh my gosh, that's an incredible feeling. Wow.
Yeah, so this is really one that's really dear to my heart. I really love this skull over here.
It's so subtle, but it's equally impactful. That's incredible.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, and it's it's not gonna make Middle Earth any better that it's here, but it's definitely making this game better.
Fair point. And it anchors the experience of the player, especially someone who is sensitive to lore and it being a reasonably accurate representation from a graphical perspective to the books. To see the homage fleshed out at that level of resolution, that's incredible, because it also forecasts what other seemingly little details are they also going to sprinkle throughout the world for people to discover and cherish and associate with memories of reading The Hobbit or the Hobbit being read to them as a child. It's a powerful moment.
Yeah, and I think that's also the reason why I was thinking in preparation for this video, like, why is it that I got so hooked on all this stuff? And I think it's because so we're gonna continue on horseback. So I think it's because the books themselves really, if you want to go deeper into the story, you will be rewarded. So there is this huge world behind it. There is like anything you can think of has been thought out by the author. So if you want to, like me, I can be, maybe as you can tell, a little bit obsessive about things that I love. And
I think it's a
with
good
the Lord of the
quality.
Rings, yeah, and I think in the Lord of the Rings, there's never really a bottom that you find. Like you can always go deeper. And to me, with LOTRO, it's the same. Even as I make these videos and I get further into the world and see more of it, there's continuously more and more stuff that I find where, again, you're flabbergasted that someone thought of this.
I was when you showed me the skull in the cave. Blew my mind. I was not expecting to see that, even though you were completely setting up the scene for some sort of resolution. That was something I was not expecting to see. So then when you pointed it out, I mean, I wish I was recording my facial expressions because I was completely stunned.
Yeah, and I think what's wild to me about this, so I think in the beginning, when LOTRO came out in 2007, Warcraft was obviously very popular, and LOTRO, gameplay-wise, has basically copied Warcraft, and that's, I think, a complaint that's been leveled against it quite often. But you can see with this, because this quest has been there since the very beginning, so even when they started out, they apparently did have this vision of accuracy in mind. And that saved them in the end. I think in the end that has kept them alive for this long.
I have heard that repeatedly mentioned, that the world is such a gameplay anchor for people who have enjoyed Tolkien's work over the years. So yeah, that absolutely resonates.
Yeah. Because I think ultimately, even though I think LOTRO is a fun game, if you're just looking for a cool MMO experience, there are lots of places that offer more modern or better things. So yeah, this is this kind of stuff you can only find here.
Exactly. Yep.
So we're now in where it's called Stock, I believe. The inn here, the Golden Perch, is mentioned as a place that Pippin would really like to go to after his long journey through the Shire towards Buckland. But they're being chased, so he doesn't have the time. But that's not really what I was going towards. This is a little side note. So we come to a bridge here.
Yes.
And you might notice it doesn't look very Hobbitish. It's pretty large, it's pretty grand, and that's because it wasn't built by hobbits. This is the Brandywine Bridge. The Shire has been settled in the year 1600 something of the Third Age, which is 1400 years before the Lord of the Rings. And before that, it was a part of a human kingdom called Arnor in the north. And hobbits were allowed to settle the lands here when Arnor decreased in population. The hobbits were allowed to settle what has now become the Shire, and one of the requirements for it is that they maintained this bridge.
Really?
Because this bridge, the road here leads from Bree to the Grey Havens and such. It's an important, and to the Blue Mountains, so it's an important road. So that's why this bridge looks different, because it's actually very old and it used to be quite important.
That. Yeah.
That's actually also the reason, if you look that way, you see a lot of ruins in the river.
Yes,
and everywhere around the Shire, basically.
That's
everywhere
so cool.
You can find those are all Arnorian ruins, so they look very man-made. I mean by humans, and that's because they are. They are not Hobbitish. They predate the Shire as it is now.
Oh, that's so cool, because up on the hill, I noticed that there were ruins of a different architectural design.
Yeah.
And you brought it all the way back to here, and how this plays into the history of the different kingdoms and how that's honored and represented here in Lord of the Rings Online. That is so cool.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll continue on a little bit towards Buckland.
Okay. I love also, not to interrupt you, I'm so sorry, but what I like about you bringing me through the Shire here is you also get a decent scope for how big it is comparatively. In the movies, there's kind of the scene where they kind of just finally get to the end where the territory transitions to a different area, and it's hard to kind of get the scope of it. When you read the books, you get that it's actually a fairly decently sized area, and you definitely get the sense here that it's not a little neighborhood. You have all these scattered, I don't know if town is the right word, but you have these local communities webbed out across the landscape, and you really do get a sense of how big it is.
Yeah, and how much stuff there is to find.
Exactly.
And I think LOTRO has to compress stuff a lot because it has to be a manageable size as a video game. So the Shire would not be able to be crossed in 5 minutes as it is in this game.
Yes.
But because there's so much stuff in it, it feels larger.
Yes.
So here we are at Frodo's actual current house called Crick Hollow. This is where he moves to in Buckland. As you can see, the front door has seen better days. And that's because in the books, when they move out of the Shire, Merry, Pippin, Frodo, Sam, and Fredegar, who's still here, all meet up in this house, and they eat together before they continue their journey towards Bree. Right after they leave, Fredegar Bolger stays behind. He's one of their friends. He stays here to guard the house. And the house is actually raided by the Ring Race because they're that close to Frodo and the group.
Wow, yeah.
They break down his front door. An alarm is rung in Buckland, so they flee again because they've been spotted, and they leave Frodo's cape on the doorstep, which is all mentioned in the books that it happens like that, and you can see.
Look at that! Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
And
what a
we're
detail.
Quite close to another detail, and that's one that really kind of made the game click for me. So that was basically the first time where I realized, like, but this is different.
Oh, interesting.
It's also conveniently next to the stable master that we're going to need in a moment. So it's this tunnel. So in the movies, they go from the Buckleberry Ferry to Bree in an instant, but in the books, they go through the old forest and meet Tom Bombadil, like very unique, weird stuff. And they take this tunnel through the hedge. So I remember when I started reading the books and I read about them taking this tunnel, I was like, I'm going to look if it's there. And it was.
Oh my gosh.
And that was kind of the first, like,
the old
hunting
forest
moment.
Tunnel. Look at that.
Like years ago, where I was like, oh my God, they're really clever, these people.
And what I like about its experience is how do I want to describe it? It's not necessarily, it's drawing your attention in the sense that it's different from the surrounding areas. But it's not also like, there's not like a exclamation mark in which you hover over it and it kind of spills the details. It's here for those who are aware of it, and you have that sense of discovery encountering it. That is so cool.
Exactly, yeah. They provide this entrance for you. It's not the only entrance. There are other ways to go into the forest. And in fact, if you follow the normal story route, this is not the entrance you take.
Really?
But if you come here and bother to find it, then it is here.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
So we'll unlock the stable master here and travel back to Mickle Delving. Do you have that one unlocked?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, great. Okay. I kind of test run the route a little bit beforehand.
Oh, I appreciate your preparation.
I figured it would be a bit awkward if we got stuck somewhere. So
no worries.
Luckily, I had a level 6 character on this server, so I could kind of emulate your experience.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Super cool.
We'll take up our horse again, and then we'll go towards the Waymeet.
Gotcha. Let me do the whistle.
How tight is your deadline, by the way?
I have about probably 25, 30 minutes left.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then we'll pick up this small little detail on the way.
Okay.
So the house that you see up there, in the Lord of the Rings, in Moria, Frodo gets is revealed that Frodo has the silver shirt of the mithril shirt of Bilbo. And earlier in the tunnels, Gandalf mentions that Bilbo had a shirt of mithril. It was made with mithril from Moria. It's very expensive, and he loaned it to a museum. And that's the museum. It's called the Matham House. That's the museum that has held Bilbo's shirt for a long time. Now, obviously, Bilbo himself has it. But and there's another fun thing in Mickle Delving that's kind of more of a real-life reference. So we have a inn here called the Bird and Baby Inn. So in real life, J.R.R. Tolkien was part of a group of writers called the Inklings, and they always met at the Eagle and Child pub, which was nicknamed the Bird and
Yes.
Baby Inn.
That's
And
cool. Yeah.
I believe if we go around the corner here, these 3 hobbits are named after some of the writers. I don't know
Oh, that's
all of them
cool.
from the top of my head, but I
Sure,
know
sure.
that this one, Jack Lewis Down,
Uh-huh.
is named after C.S. Lewis, the author of Narnia, because he
Yeah.
was also a friend of Tolkien. So that's just a very small reference to
That's so cool. Yeah, totally.
to the man himself,
Yeah, the
basically.
heritage. That's awesome.
So I figured since we're in Mickle Delving anyway, we might as
Sure,
well
yeah. Yeah, the
take
reference
that
to
one
the pub
along.
and the authors themselves. That's awesome. Whisper.
Right,
Oh, did I
so
push
we'll
the wrong
mount
button?
up
There we
again.
go. Yes, sir.
And then we'll go to an area that was added quite recently in the Before the Shadows expansion. You've heard of that one, I think, right?
Yes, I've
So
played through that on a different server, but yes.
Yeah, okay. So for the people who might not know what it is, it's an expansion that basically creates an alternate starting zone for the game. So you start somewhere else, and the story, I haven't actually played through it myself, so I don't know this 100%, but I know there's a couple of interesting things. It's partially about Eregion and the creation of the rings. It's also about Boromir. Boromir travels to Rivendell from Gondor because his father has had a dream or something, and he sends Boromir to go to Rivendell. And Boromir, in the Fellowship of the Ring, explains that his journey was very perilous at a deserted city called Tharbad. He loses his horse, and he had a lot of trouble getting to Rivendell. And a lot of that has been added in that expansion. And so I thought that was actually a really clever thing to do, because for a starting area, you need an explanation for why your character is going to become like influential and a hero.
Yes.
And like, in a sense, starting from the Shire is kind of weird if you were a hobbit, for instance, because there's not much going on in the Shire, but surrounding the peaceful land of the Shire, there's a lot of people working very hard to keep it that way, like the rangers, people like Boromir that have traveled very far to undertake very dangerous journeys to kind of all in preparation for what would become the journey that's undertaken in the Lord of the Rings. So there's a lot of setting of the stage, basically. And I think the next place that we're going to go to real quick really kind of is about that as well.
Oh, cool.
And another reason that I think it's fun, so the Before the Shadow was released in 2022, I think. And the area connected to a lot of places, to Breland, to the Lowlands, to a lot of stuff has been interconnected. But this gate that we're going to go through now has been put here in the Shire in 2007, and with the expansion that's been released in 2022, about 15 years later, it has finally been opened.
Oh, really?
So I think that's also really cool. There are a lot of maps that the team is releasing at the moment that are not the mainline expansions, are meant to fill in gaps in the world and connecting all sorts of areas. So in the end, I believe their goal is to have it be one big open world without teleporting, where you can just walk through every land that there is.
Yep.
And the place that we've come to now is called the SAR Ford, which is mentioned in the books. It's not actually shown, but it's a fort that is guarded by the rangers. So as the hobbits leave the Shire, they learn from Aragorn that there are rangers that are protecting their lands for them and keeping them as peaceful as they have been. And one of their outposts is here at the ford of the Brandywine River, south of the Shire. So you see there's a ranger here, a couple of people.
Yep.
We know from the books as well, I believe Frodo learns this in Rivendell, that SAR Ford gets attacked. I believe this happens in the Before the Shadows expansion as well. I haven't seen it myself, but it's in the trailer, so I'm assuming it's in there. This place gets attacked the day before Frodo leaves, basically, because the ring wraiths cross the borders of the Shire at this spot.
Interesting.
And SAR Ford hasn't been in this game for a very long time, but now it is finally.
Oh,
So we can
cool.
finally go
Yeah.
here.
That's so
Yeah,
awesome.
so it's really cool to finally be able to see to see it. And I think it's before the story of Before the Shadows did a lot of things very cleverly. I think it tied into the Rings of Power, because it also was in Eregion. It was about the creation of the rings,
Mhm.
just like the show was. It was released around the same time as the show, on purpose, I'm pretty sure. It also tied into the story of Boromir. So I'm gonna take a sip of water real quick.
Sure.
It ties into the story of Frodo leaving the Shire. So it's a really great example of how they are able to make content and stories in unexpected places, I think.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what you're describing, even though Before the Shadow was one of the more recent expansions, it covers a section of the story that happens near the very beginning of the books.
Yeah.
And so it's cool that they're able to still flesh out the world from a narratological perspective of a section of the story that's in the beginning, even though this expansion is relatively recent in context to its, 16, 17 year development story.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really cool that they take the time to look after these earlier places. So we'll take the Stable Master back to Mickle Delving.
Okay.
And then we'll go to Bree from there.
Okay, sounds good.
It's a little bit of a convoluted journey, but it's gonna make sense in a moment.
No worries. And I imagine the dozen or so areas you're bringing me, we've just seen that with reference to the Shire. You probably could do that in any zone. I'm presuming So this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just a sampling.
Exactly. So we'll take the horse to West Bree. I believe you should be able
Breeland,
to.
West Bree, yes, perfect.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so exactly. There's each time. So the most recent video that I made was about Gondor, about the Outlands of Gondor. They're called.
Okay.
And it's an area that's not very explicitly described in the books. I believe Aragorn goes through it with the Army of the Dead in about literally 2 pages.
So it's pretty quick.
So it's pretty quick. It's very sparse. There is some interesting stuff that happens there. We're gonna go set our milestone here at the Prancing Pony, and then we'll go to the south.
Okay.
So I was expecting to really, really not like the place. I'd been through there before. It was in kind of a weird period in the game's history as well. So I was like, I was really unmotivated to make that video, to be honest. But once again, they kind of proved me wrong. It's there was still a lot of stuff that was fun to find there. So here's the milestones. So we'll bind that one real quick because we're going to be using it again in a second.
Let's see. You don't have a milestone skill yet.
Oh.
If you don't have a milestone skill in your pack, use it to learn this. Maybe I had to have something in my backpack. All my other characters have this, so I don't know if this is a...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you get it when you leave the introduction. So maybe it's like a scroll that you need to use or something?
Yeah, let me take a peek and see if I'm missing something. Is it this guy?
Because otherwise, see, maybe it's not even necessary, but we're gonna. Yeah, so if you can't find it, I don't think it's gonna be too much of a problem. But
okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's not immediately obvious, so I'll just follow your lead here.
Then we'll just continue.
Okay.
So I was trying to figure out a way, to bring you as a low-level character to some more high-level places.
Sure. Yeah.
And I figured one out. Thanks to the housing system, actually.
Okay.
So another thing that I find really fun, and it's also an instance where they kind of bend the lore a little bit. We're gonna go in here to the broker's
Okay.
office. Then there are a couple of books here on the table, and over here you
Yes.
have Real Estate Ledger Lindleby.
Yes.
So if you press that one and just take the topmost
Yep.
neighborhood, I think Adwila,
Yep.
and press enter.
Here we go.
Right. And when it's loaded, you can turn around immediately
Yep,
and exit over here.
Oh, cool. Ah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So this is a really nice workaround. I believe there's nothing here that's able to kill you, because we are now in a very special place, one that I'm actually pretty glad that they included. So a little bit of quick Middle-earth history is the migration of the hobbits. So the hobbits migrated from around the Anduin, in between the Misty Mountains and Mirkwood, at around the time that Sauron took residence in Lower Mirkwood in Dol Guldur. They left, they went over the Misty Mountains, and they slowly but surely traveled through different places, towards eventually settling in the Shire. And what the LOTRO team has done is they have basically placed a Hobbit village on every
look at this.
location that the hobbits have lived. So where we are now currently, if you look at the map, this is meant to be. They explain it as like a remnant. There's a couple of people who turned back from this migration. They lived near the river. That's where Gollum actually comes from. Smeagol.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And Gandalf mentions in the Fellowship of the Ring, I believe, he has tried looking for Gollum in the place where his people used to live, but they've gone. And I believe the explanation for this village being here is that this is where they have traveled to.
Oh,
this little hamlet here in between the mountains. They're being protected by the eagles, so nobody can get to them, and they live here in peace, basically.
That's
and
such
they've
a cool
added
detail.
some Hobbit premium housing neighborhood next to it because they.
Okay, interesting. And that's where we just were. That was the trick to getting here.
That's where we just were. That's where we just teleported to. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah. So I will just head towards the exit of the village real quick. Oh, there's dangerous stuff in the fields over there, so don't go through the fields.
In the landscape design, you can definitely see, and obviously the topography of the area would warrant the mountains and the epic view, but you can also get a sense of they were more familiar with the terrain tool sets, and it definitely feels a bit more modern here.
So
comparatively,
the LOTRO team, but you're totally right. The development team actually does live streams. I believe they're called a casual stroll, where one of the actual landscape designers walks around the map and explains kind of the creation process.
Oh, cool!
This
I need to
is
check those out.
Cool moment over here.
That was nice.
Yeah, that's
hence
neat, right?
Your description about they are protected by these guys
Eagles.
or gals. Yeah,
exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I believe you first have to do a quest for him, and then the hobbits in the town actually appear. Currently, the town is empty. They'll come when you complete his stuff. But so in those streams, he actually describes how they create their maps much more open these days. So with a lot less barriers, more open, wide angles. So you can really tell over here that they've gotten much better at creating those types of terrains.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of hidden Hobbit villages. There's been one in Enedwaith, which was in 2009, I think it was added. So there've been a lot. I believe there's about 4 or 5 these days in several places. So you can follow the entire migration. Yeah, it's really cool. And of course, it bends the lore a little bit, especially the ones in Enedwaith and Swanfleet. You're pretty sure that they're not supposed to be there in the books. Like, they've all migrated to the Shire and they've all settled there, basically.
Oh, interesting. Gotcha. Okay.
So it's a little stretch to say that there's still hidden Hobbit villages, but it's not impossible, and it's a fun way to show their history. So
exactly. Yeah. Super cool.
I forgive them for doing it anyway.
Some artistic liberties. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we'll see about getting back. There's a stable master inside the housing district. So I'm hoping that one takes us to a location that we can actually use.
Okay, no worries.
so another neighborhood that we could have gone to is Erebor, the Lonely Mountain, but it's going. Erebor itself on the inside doesn't look that interesting, I think, and getting to an interesting place from there is going to require a lot of very slow bodyguarding from me. So I figured that would probably take
no
too
worries.
long.
Yeah.
So
yeah, not a problem.
I figured we'll just go here and it's a lot of Hobbit themed stuff in this video, but Hobbits are
entirely
nice,
appropriate though. Yeah. And it's cool to see how the story and journey of the hobbits as a people really ties into the rest of the grand drama in the story. And this is one way that they express that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's also I think that LOTRO does really well from the Lord of the Rings. You kind of get the idea that the only place that there's any fighting is in Rohan and Gondor. Like all the humans get all the shit dumped on their doorstep.
Yep.
I'm just gonna take the upper neighborhood again. But that's not true at all. There's a lot of places that there's a lot of conflict, a lot of pain. Like Breland itself gets raided while the hobbits are away. In Lothlorien, there's a couple of fights. In Erebor, there's a couple of fights. So there's a lot of suffering everywhere in Middle Earth because of Sauron. And I think that's something that LOTRO is also really good at showing. All right, so this is player housing, so you'll definitely be seeing some lore-breaking stuff over here.
Players having fun, yeah.
All right, it's a little laggy here sometimes.
Yeah, I do see what seems to be an evil obelisk.
Yeah, maybe that's not meant. Yeah, that wouldn't probably be here normally.
Yeah, no worries. No, it's fun.
More ruins, almost there.
And so where we are, this is an instance in which players can rent lots and then decorate using items they've collected in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, specific decorative items you can put there. I think it's a lot of fun. I like fiddling around with it a lot. And create a nice house.
Super cool.
Okay, this is good. Here are a lot of options for me, but not for you. But
so I do have mithril coins. Yeah, go ahead.
I figured we'd go to Minas Tirith. In midsummer. I believe that should be available to you.
Minas Tirith. Let me check. Mordor.
All the way above at Anorian after battle.
Okay, Anorian after battle. Yes, Minas Tirith. I already have that. I can travel there for free. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so go ahead.
I don't know how I unlock that on this character. On my other tune on Arkenstone, I have, but this is available. So sweet.
So this is available the moment you go out of the introduction, basically.
Oh,
I don't know why they did it like that, but for the purposes of this video, let's just dismount here for a second.
Okay,
it's very useful for us. So this is another really cool thing I think about the Lord of the Rings Online. It goes beyond the Lord of the Rings itself. So where we are now is Minas Tirith after the War of the Ring. The ring has been destroyed. Aragorn is crowned king, and he's marrying Arwen, his wife. And that's basically, this is Minas Tirith in party mode, basically. So
cool.
We'll go in. So this is actual Fourth Age stuff that you can witness. So if you've ever, as a Lord of the Rings fan, had this itch of like, I want to know, like in the appendices, there is a lot described about the things that Aragorn does after he has been crowned king. And if you want to actually see it, this is the game to play, I would say. I think we can get one to the High Stables from here.
Okay. Soldiers tier, Minas Tirith, Osgiliath. There's a craftsman's tier. Is one of them
in Minas Tirith available for you, or are they all?
High Stables. Are we already there, or is that something else? Is that where we want to go? High Stables.
Where we are. No. So yeah, let's go there.
Yeah, I can go to. Yep. Okay. And to your point,
near the top.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, you were mentioning just earlier about Yeah,
Oh,
it'll be
sorry.
cool to see the view. You're fine. Just earlier, you're talking about how suffering finds expression here in Lord of the Rings, yet at the same time, the other end of the spectrum, there's also the celebration and triumph over evil finding expression too.
Very much so. Yeah, definitely. That you see, yeah, you see the rewards of the suffering in front of your
Yeah.
eyes, basically.
Yep. Yep.
So where we've been taken to is called the High Stables.
Uh-huh.
Won't go in them because they themselves are not that interesting. The only fun thing about them is that when Gandalf comes to Minas Tirith with Pippin, he goes all the way up the city with his horse. But in the
Mm-hmm.
top part of the city, called the Citadel, no horses are allowed. Now,
Oh,
of course,
okay. Mm-hmm.
Shadowfax isn't kind of your regular old horse, so normally
Sure.
Gandalf
Sure.
is not quite happy when other people handle him, but this time he had no choice, so
Mm-hmm.
so Shadowfax gets put into a stable, which is this one, the High Stables. So in game, I don't know if he's here at the moment, but when you are before the battle, you can find him here, and
Oh,
it's
cool.
described that Pippin
Mm-hmm.
goes into the service of Denethor, and he also looks after Shadowfax in this stable. So
Oh, that's cool.
that's a neat little part. But we'll go back through this tunnel here and then go
Okay.
up to the Citadel itself, where for some reason I believe we are allowed to ride a horse ourselves. So we're gonna find out if that's true or not. It's a little hidden, but in here we're gonna go.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Sharp turn.
Yeah, sharp turns. In fact, for gameplay purposes, the way Minas Tirith is built is actually really annoying because there are 7 levels, and each level
Oh,
has a gate,
wow.
and each gate is on a
Oh, man.
different part, which is of course a defensive measure. It's
Sure. Sure.
clever in a case of defending the city, but it's really annoying if you want to get somewhere.
Sure. Oh, this is
Um,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, so now we are in the square of the fountain. Um, let's see here. Oh, we might have to go to a different layer to show you what I wanted to actually. Oh, well, this is interesting too, by the way. So normally you would have the white tree here, which I think you'll be familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
That
Oh, look at
white
that.
tree. That's
Yeah. Yes.
but of course the tree has died. It's never gonna be gonna come back to life. So it gets cut down at the end, and Aragorn finds, together with Gandalf, high in the mountains above the Minas Tirith, another small sapling of the white tree, and that one he
That is
plants
so
back
cool.
to have like a new tree for the birth of his new
Yeah.
Gondorian kingdom, and that's this little sapling over here.
That's
Um,
incredible. And it's just there. Like I said, there's no
and it's there.
obvious. Yeah, I know. That's so cool. Subtle
Yeah,
storytelling, but it's if you know the backstory, it's really powerful.
exactly. So just for fun, I think we'll go into the tower of
Okay.
Ectelion himself. Just because it's a cool place. It also kind of shows some of the graphical tricks that they are able to do
Yeah, some of the
with these
reflections.
reflections.
Yeah.
And all these guards wear a specific set of gear that's also described in the books how it looks with all these mithril wings on their
Oh,
helmets,
really? Cool.
and these
Yeah.
black overcoats. Yeah, so those
Mm-hmm.
are all according to what they are supposed to be. And this is where you would normally find Denethor, but because we are in the Fourth Age, here is the new king of Gondor, King Elisar himself.
Look at that.
So there was one last thing that I kind of wanted to end it here, but we need to go to a different
Okay.
layer. So if you have
Okay.
5 more minutes, then
I
I
do.
think I'll be able
Not a
to
problem.
show it to you.
No, this has
All
been
right.
super rewarding. Thank you for your preparation and
Yeah,
for your exquisite details.
thank you. It's as a student, I actually worked as a tour guide, so some of
Really?
my
That's a fun
yeah.
skill to carry over. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's very
I was thinking
natural.
like that's gonna be
Uh-huh.
super useful over here.
That's awesome. No, it comes across.
Uh, So, okay, well, now that we are here, I can't really contain myself. Really, 1 second detour.
Yep.
So, over here, you have the High Guest House.
Yep.
This is the guest house where Gandalf and Pippin are kept. Now the door is open. I didn't know that. But in the normal Minas Tirith, before the battle, this door is closed,
Yep.
so you can't go in.
Interesting. Yeah.
But they do make a note of it. So when you walk by, they say
Yep.
Northern Guest House, just to acknowledge, like, yes, we know this is a place where Gandalf and Pippin
Gotcha.
are staying, but we're
Yep.
not
Yep.
going to put anything here, but we're just going to show you, yes, this is the place that you're looking for, even though you
Interesting.
can't go in.
Gotcha.
Okay, we can take
Yeah,
our
nod
horse
to
again.
the lore aficionados. Hey, we know this exists. Please
Yeah,
look at
exactly.
Which is
I-
cool because it's something that you have to take seriously.
Yeah, and it's especially like I felt really acknowledged because I was looking around for this guest house and I couldn't
Sure.
find
Yep.
it, and then I found this
Mhm.
door and I was like, oh,
Yep.
okay, thank you. You because I have had some details, like some of it is just isn't there. Sometimes
sure.
there is stuff that's just not there, and of course I'm gonna be looking for it before I state that something isn't there. So I have had my time wasted in that way before. So I was really happy to be rewarded here. So we're gonna go back to the city stables for a second.
Yep. Yep.
And then let's see if this works. A look around. Okay, I think we have to go. This is a bit of a guess because I'm not exactly sure. I think there should be some way of getting to Minas Tirith before the battle from here. But that might actually be a separate thing. It may be inside the stable itself, and otherwise,
Do you want me to follow you?
it's. I'm just gonna check if it's in here, so you don't
Okay.
have to. I'll let you know if I find what I'm looking for.
No worries.
No, it's not in here. Aha. So now I think I get. No, I can't find it. I hope there would be a horse that would take us to pre-battle Minas Tirith. And the reason for it is that the white tree still stands in that layer. And it has been it has been modeled after a real tree that stands in, or stood because it's no longer there, in Oxford, and it was actually J.R.
No
Tolkien's
way.
favorite tree. Yeah, I learned
that's
this a few
cool.
days ago.
I'll overlay. I'll find it on my other tune who has access to that layer, and I'll make sure to put that against what you just described and provide that contrast.
Yeah. And you can also see that that's another really small detail, that there's water occasionally dripping down from the tree, and that's also described in the book. So,
cool.
But that's basically the end of the tour. I figured, we've been going for a pretty good while, so I think Minas Tirith and the Fourth Age would be a nice place to end it, basically.